G'day everyone, welcome back to another weekly tipping video on the channel. Going to be going over my tips for round 21 of the 2025 AFL season. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do go and to enjoy today's video. And let's begin. Okay, so let's start off with how I went from the previous round, that being round 20. Got myself a 7 out of 9, a pretty decent score I guess you can say, but at this stage of the year, a lot of tips are fairly predictable, but the tips we did get wrong was backing in the Swannies over the Giants, Brisbane over the Suns, where, yeah, geez, Gold Coast probably one of their best wins of the season. Totally bullied Brisbane around the ball. And as for GWS, second half, totally outdid Sydney, 12 goals in a row. Couldn't believe it watching it live on Friday night. But the rest of the tips I did get right. Hawthorn over Carlton, just a class above. The Dogs, no surprises here, over Essendon. And then Fremantle over the Eagles with a big score. I think their biggest of this season. The Cats almost, over 100-point win against North Melbourne. 𝐓𝐴𝐿, 11 goals. Could it be on track for 100 snags? That'd be something special. The Crows embarrassed their bitter foes of Port Adelaide by nearly 100 points. Plenty of fallout for Port Adelaide off the back of that. Collingwood over Richmond. And St Kilda over Melbourne. How about this? I really didn't know to tip out of this one, but the Saints, one of the craziest comebacks you'll ever see. And as for the D's, oh boy, good. Someone good would be in a bit of trouble. Let's have a quick glance at my tipping competition leaderboard updates. There were 5 people that got themselves a full score, 9 out of 9, that being 𝗏𝐴𝐴, 𝐷KG YouTube, James Urquhart, 𝘼𝐻𝐿𝐴, and 𝘲𝐵 Agents, all with 9 out of 9. Well done to you lot. And as for who is leading my competition, it still is Tom Mack, 89, leading by 3 points with a total score of 156. So we now begin with the tips for round 21. 4 rounds remain of this home and away season, and it is one of the more important games for both these clubs. The Dogs taking on the Giants Thursday night at Marvel Stadium. For the Doggies, they just need to keep on winning, and arguably most likely have to win all their remaining games if they're any chance of finals, and it's a good opportunity to be playing GWS here with a few of their outs. They're in great form at the moment, to be fair. The Giants, I think the last 6 weeks, they've really turned their game on its head. Their midfield and their clearance game has been outstanding, showing a lot more connection with how they're moving the ball, especially from the back half. Whitfield and Nash have been in brilliant form. They will be without Buckley. They've been without Kelly for a little bit this season. I think they have the depth to fill that in. But Connor Idun and Sam Tallow have been excellent when they've played out there this season. And of course, Toby Green is suspended as well. Head-to-head wise, the Dogs have a terrific record over GWS, a 9-1 record with their last 10 games. And they did, earlier this season, belt them over in Canberra. Well, as we all know with the Doggies, they have the attack to put on some scores, but just defensively, especially against good sides, they get caught out the back a bit too easily. Looking at it form-wise, I really like what the Giants are doing in the minute, especially with how they're moving the ball, and they're just the perfect side to really exploit the Dogs defensively. Look what they did in that second half against the Swans. Not only was it dominance from centre bounce, but they just brought tremendous speed on the ball. And look what the Lions and of course the Crows did a few weeks ago. They just totally outdid them with their ball movement. So I think the Giants, really good chance to win this game, but I'm just feeling the Dogs are due a scalp against a good opponent. They've been gettable defensively, but just watch what they do with ball in hand. They can put on a big score, and yeah, Norton's been in ripping form. 𝐷'Arcy off the back of a big bag of goals last week too. Home field advantage as well for the Dogs. I'll go with the Doggies here, but not really with much confidence. I feel like the Giants could pip them, but the Doggies to get a bit of a scalp here against a good opponent. We'll go the Bulldogs in this one, in a close one by 11 points. Then for Friday night, we have one of the games of the round. The Crows take it on Hawthorn at the Adelaide Oval. Adelaide, what tremendous form they have been in. We said in the Power Rankings video, they've just progressively gotten their form better and better as the season has progressed. One of the more balanced teams in the competition. They're the #1 turnover team in the AFL as well for attack and defence. At home in the Adelaide Oval, they've rarely lost at this venue this season. They are looking like the team to beat at the minute. And Hawthorn, let's remember, they did beat the Crows a little while ago down in Tassie. They got annihilated in that first half, but where they really won it was dominance from their contested possessions. They totally outdid Adelaide around the footy, and that's definitely going to try and be the recipe for trying to win this game against the Crows once again. Get a bit of dominance in that midfield, but there still has been questions on the Hawthorn's midfield. Are they getting enough scoring prowess from that area? Troops are starting to come back in, like Mitch Lewis, and Sicily's been in good form. Plays are a little bit hit and miss early in the year. Dylan Moore's another one of those plays too. They have a good record over the Crows. They plough at Adelaide Oval. They definitely have the forward half weapons to win this game and maybe cause a bit of an upset here, but it's just too difficult to go against the Crows in the minute. They're looking unbelievable. They're looking tough inside and out. I feel this one will be a close one, but Adelaide just will be too good at home, I reckon. So we'll go the Crows in this one, and we'll tip them here by 15 points. Saturday games now. First one up, we do have the Demons taking on the West Coast Eagles at Marvel Stadium. Melbourne coming off one of their more embarrassing losses in quite some time, conceding the biggest final term comeback in AFL history. They were 46 points up, and they just basically went home. They're down tools. They were awesome for 3 quarters, and they were looking great in the midfield, and finding a bit of targets up forward as of late. Fritsch has been good the last few games, and we all know about 𝐓𝐴𝐿. His last 6 weeks have been fantastic. They just simply stopped dead, and a bit of pressure is on Simon Goodwin. Could he get the sack at the end of the year? Just been a bit of a mess for the Demons this season, and so it has been for the West Coast Eagles. Just 1 win for the year, and whilst they look like they were building somewhat throughout the middle stages of the year, the last 2 weeks have been somewhat disappointing, conceding a big score against Fremantle, who don't usually put on massive scores, and conceding a ton against the Tigers in one of their worst performances of the season. They're looking, out of touch a little bit, so could they try and recalibrate here at Marvel Stadium, where they seem to play okay footy here? Like, remember, they were putting up a competitive fight against the Pies, but a team that's just looking really low on confidence at the minute. Melbourne, for me, they're just going to have so much fire in the bellies with dropping that game. You'd expect them to come out firing here. Surely the Eagles do bounce back and make this a bit of a contest, but I think from a 4-quarter point of view, Melbourne, with the players they have in the forward half in form, like Bailey, Fritsch, and even Chandler bobbing up here and there in 𝐓𝐿, I think overall they should just be too good here, the Ds, and should find a way to win this game. So I'll tip the Ds in this one by 30 points. Next game up, we do have the Suns taking on the Tigers at People's First Stadium. Gold Coast coming off probably their best win of the season. It was against a side that usually bullies them, but they bullied them of the Brisbane Lions. Just pure dominance from that midfield. I think Ral and Anderson definitely putting a case together to both be locks in this year's All-Australian side. Ral's back after the year has been excellent, and I was worried a little bit with the absence of 𝐓𝐿𝐴 Miller and Daniel Rioli. Joel Jeffrey's been able to fill in the void, and Alex Davies came in for his first game, looked tremendous. Pure dominance in that midfield, but it's a bit of a tricky side to play at the minute, Richmond. They've found some form the last few weeks, 2 out of their last 3, and a competitive effort they had against the Pies. They're just starting to connect a lot better inside 50, get a bit of pace on their ball movement, and throughout stages of games, their pressure's really been up and about. And Richmond, as I've said throughout the season, they head in each game with not really much to lose. I think Richmond can definitely make this a contest early on, but you'd expect Gold Coast off the back of one of the best performances of this season to find a way to knock off the Tigers here. So expecting Richmond to really bring the intensity, and look, they did beat them last time, and they totally just shell-shocked Gold Coast with how they just piled on scores quickly. But Gold Coast, I think they'll be too good here at home and have really lost up in the Gold Coast as well. Midfield's in tremendous form. Collins came back in to fill in that defensive post as well last week. Pressure in the forward half last week was amazing as well. I'll go the Suns in this one over the Tigers, and we'll tip them here in a pretty convincing win by 35 points. And then we've got another Saturday twilight game here. The Swans taking on Essendon at the SCG. Both these teams' seasons aren't done for 2025. It was last week officially for Sydney, but maybe it's an opportunity to start debuting a few players. Jesse Tatoli, I've been loving in the VFL. Hopefully he gets a gig soon. Sydney off the back of a disappointing second half against the Giants. That's just been the common theme this year, and probably a handful of losses for the Swans. Just their inability to stop momentum. They conceded a run-on of goals, and it was 12 goals they conceded in a row unanswered after half-time. Playing Essendon, where, look, these two sides definitely have their close contests and really just strange encounters at times. But Essendon, let's remember they did knock off the Swans last time out, and it was through some really how they moved the ball through that uncontested style, and they just totally blitzed the Swans with their ball movement. But this was quite a while ago. This is when Essendon had not the injury list they had now, practically fielding half of the AFL side. Interested to see how the Dons will finish off their year. You'd expect them to just keep on fighting and scrapping, but just don't think they match the quality here with Sydney. They struggled against top 8 sides this year, the Swans, but against these bottom 10 teams, they've just been able to find a way through showing a bit of flashes of their ball movement from last season. So I expect the Swans to win well here on a bit of a depleted Essendon side. Dons to bring it. The heat early, I feel, but Sydney run away and win this one by 25 points. And then we have one of the games of the round on Saturday night. The Pies taking on the Lions at the MCG. First versus third. And both teams sitting fairly comfortably in the top 4. But this is just a must-win for both sides. Just to lock away their specific positions on the ladder. For the Pies, want to lock in the top spot. For Brisbane, they just want to keep in touch a little bit here of the top 4. Because if they drop this game, they could go maybe as low as 6th or 7th. So it's almost a must-win for them. And I said in my Power Rankings video, Brisbane tend to bounce back really well off poor losses. Like, they they had the win against Hawthorn. You know, they're the reigning premiers. They're just a very mature team, and they overall, out of all the teams, I still think they play some of the more enjoyable brand of football, how they can link up. And Collingwood themselves, they potentially have a bit of a chink in their armour. They've dropped 2 out of the last 3, and granted, 2 of those losses were very close ones and were winnable games. But yeah, the last few games have sort of lacked a bit of efficiency going inside 50, and that's been pretty much Brisbane all year long, and especially with a few of their losses, their inability to capitalise off field position, and they've had some poor goal kicking that's cost them games. Also giving Brisbane a mulligan with that Suns loss. It was a wet game, it happens, let's just see how they bounce back. Apart from last week, they've been moving the ball really well, and you only have to look at that Fremantle game, look what the Dockers did. They really took the game on, and Brisbane certainly have the capabilities of doing that, especially at the G. Really tough game to tip here. Brisbane on the down, they seem to bounce back well this season, but the Pies is the Pies, and you just expect them to win, especially at home here, and their forward half pressure this season at the G as well has been very difficult to outdo. My head's telling me the Pies will probably be that bit too good, but I've just got that gut feeling Brisbane's going to come out and find a way to win here. They've been a little bit gettable, the Pies, in their midfield and also their defensive transitions, so yeah, I'm feeling Brisbane in this one. I reckon their midfield will trump the Pies and outdo Collingwood as well on the outside. So Brisbane to pip a close one here by 10 points. Sunday games now. First one up, we do have the Saints taking on North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, 1:40 p.m. St Kilda finally got their win that they were craving after weeks and weeks of pretty gallant defeats against credible opposition. They found a way to win against Melbourne, where it wasn't looking pretty up until three-quarter time. Bit of the same old issues where the Saints just really struggled to execute well forward to centre this season. They just really took the game on. They threw Max Hall in the midfield. Nas was playing predominantly midfield. And yeah, just an unbelievable comeback it was. And it was definitely fueled by 𝐓𝐴𝐺𝐼. Just what a talent he is. Facing North Melbourne here, the Saints, where, yeah, 5 losses in a row. And they're just in a bit of a rut at the minute. Similar to the Eagles at that mid-patch of the season where it looked like they were building. They've been gallant up until three-quarter time. And as well as that's been the case against the Swans and also the Ds. But yeah, the absence of Cherry is definitely hurting their aggression and their clearance game a wee bit in the midfield. And when they can't win that midfield battle, they're just getting exposed a bit defensively. Surely there's a fire in the belly performance coming out where they're a lot more accountable defensively. They work hard in transition. And I expect that to happen against another fellow bottom 6 side of the Saints here. Show a bit of fight and aggression, but from a four-quarter point of view, I just don't have the confidence in tipping North Melbourne here. Going inside 50, they're just a real red-hot mess with linking up and hitting targets in their forward 50, and the Saints off the back of what could be a club-changing sort of win. I just think the morale's too high for them to drop this game here against a lowly North Melbourne team. Yeah, just expect the Saints to be too strong here, and I'll back them in here, the Saints, and they'll win this game here by 24 points. Next Sunday game, we have the Cats taking on Port Adelaide at 𝐓𝐴𝐺𝐵A Stadium. The Cats currently sitting in 4th place, and with their run home, a really good chance to finish in the top 4. And as for Port Adelaide, geez, they've had some real big losses this year, and certainly last week's was headlined as probably one of their worst losses of the season. Almost a 100-point belting, one of the worst showdown performances in history, and the team in general just looks checked out. They have a few players out for the season with injury, like Horn Francis and 𝘬𝐿𝐼, and yeah, you just see Ken Hinkley's body language in the box. He just looks like he's defeated and he's given up somewhat, and they're going to be now resting Miles Bergman for the rest of the season, just putting him away and getting him fired up with a shoulder complaint, I'm pretty sure it is. Head-to-head wise though, Port Adelaide seemed to play Geelong okay. The last 2 games, they did lose a close one, I think, in 2023, and then last season they did actually beat the Cats, but not really many expected them to. But Port Adelaide just aren't really in that position in the minute, shocking a few fans like myself and finding a way to win and shock the AFL world, given, yeah, the team's just really checked out in the minute and they're getting well beaten in the contested game. Plenty of inconsistencies with their execution inside 50 as well. Not really many surprises here. The Cats are humming. They've been ordinary the last few games against the top 8 opponents, but especially against these bottom 10 teams, they really get their confidence growing. And could Jeremy Cameron kick away Cats' efficiency, and their outside game should be too good here for Port Adelaide. They'll win this one well by 35 points. Final game of the round, we have the Dockers taking on the Blues at Optus Stadium. Fremantle playing with some confidence in the minute. 3 wins in a row, and the last 6 or 7 games have won almost all of them, apart from that loss against the Swans. But yeah, as I said a few weeks ago, with that win against the Pies, is it a club-changing one? Because that 4th quarter was something special, and they had their biggest score, I'm pretty sure, of this season with the win over the Eagles, excuse me. Looking at Carlton, it's been a bit of a scratchy season from themselves in the last 5 weeks. They just have the sole win over the Demons, where they themselves have been struggling, but it was back to their strengths of dominance from the midfield and really good pressure around the ball. And look, could Carlton find a way to make this a bit of a contest? The big thing that's been letting them down, though, is their execution going inside 50. It's just been too often where they've had really shallow entries or loopy kicks, not hitting up players. Week upon week, it always looks like Carlton are trying to play a different game style as well. They might play it a little bit slower. They might really take the game on through the corridor and have a few unforced errors on the way. Yeah, I think Carlton's just one of those teams that really need the end of the season to come. But look, maybe they are going to pick up one more win for the season. And there still is that pessimism out of myself and probably even Fremantle supporters that say they probably could have a shock loss here. But Carlton, I just don't think they have the synergy at the moment and the form really to put on a winning score here. The Dockers, they're up and about in a minute. And yeah, I think Fremantle should be too good here and they'll beat the Blues. And I think maybe a bit of a cagey affair. But yeah, the second half, especially this season for Fremantle, have been good, and yeah, they've been really just expansive and showing a bit of flair with their ball movement in the minute. So yeah, Freo should win this one well in the end and win this one by 29 points. So overall, there are my tips for round 21 of the 2025 AFL season. Let me know your tips down below in the comments section. It feels like week upon week these last few rounds have been pretty predictable with the tipping, but just trying to tip that upset tip or that unorthodox tip, that's the tricky one at the minute. But let me know your tips down below. Always love to hear your people's opinions. And that's it from me, everybody. Take care. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.